right now.
You're playing with my hair.
Am I?
You just call me adorable.
Really?
Is it because I'm 18? Am I like a little kid adorable?
No.
Does Lindsay Lohan think so?
You are actually older than most of the boys I date.
Nah, it'll be fine.
In the age of outrage and almost mandatory partisanship, a lot of lost youth are looking for a voice to give them advice and make them forget about the world through the escapism of celebrity gossip and shiny pink innocence. But what happens if that person is a wolf in bubbly pink rhinestone-covered sheep's clothing? Shallon Lester seems to know. To examine the present, we have to go back to where it all began, and for this one, it's gonna be a bumpy ride. Welcome back to Wish for Death Island, Population Me, and while the world is on fire, come to hang out while we dig up some trash.
Air shrieks. The breath's long. The water sits still.
So considering the hellscape that we're about to dive into, I figured that it would be good to dress accordingly. Yes, I know my hair looks weird, I'm in the process of dyeing it, So we have our sidekick here today who's going to help us with all of these things. He's very traumatized. I figured that face cam would be appropriate because we're going to talk about some pretty intimate subjects regarding mental health, and I just thought it would be better taste if I was just talking about it rather than what I usually do. 90% of the time I think that it's better without face cam, but I think that today it was just needed. So Shallon Lester is one of those women who kind of exists in a bubble. You have stuff that exists solely for that small audience, and a lot of people just don't even know that it exists. One of the best examples that I can give is those Christian movies, you know, the ones where it's, you know, God is outlawed and then all these people come together and then they talk about Bible quotes for like half the movie, and no one seems to give a shit about them until somebody finds them and does a review, and then all of a sudden it's like a big deal. One of the biggest questions that people get is, how do people watch this stuff? And the answer is that we don't see it most of the time. The people who do watch it are the ones that get it directly to them, and that's the sole reason that this content still makes money, because it has a dedicated niche. Shallon Lester is in the gossip guru kind of thing. Think of Wendy Williams, all of those stupid things where people sit in a row and start talking about garbage, about celebrities and other stuff that no one really cares about, and the standards are totally different. Now normally I'm fine with this because I really don't care, and I think that people are way too sensitive anyway, but in this particular instance there's a lot of shitty stuff that's going on there, and even though I'm only really talking about Shallon Lester, it's kind of a critique on everyone in general in this whole genre because it's really just creepy. I've often said that if you act a certain way, you'll attract the kind of people who act that way as well. If you try to be more grounded, you'll attract people who appreciate that kind of thing and appreciate the honesty. But if you attract people who just want the manipulation and they see you as a microphone for all the shitty stuff that they want to think, they're gonna eat you alive at one point, and I think that that's what's happening to Shallon. So the tale begins with a man named D'Angelo Wallace. He made a video called Shallon Lester Blocked Me Before I Could Get the Truth Out, and this came out around May of this year. It was originally not meant to be, according to him, because he was just looking at research for an Ellen DeGeneres video, and in the end he found something way worse to talk about. It just kind of snowballed into a type of cancellation, and usually I'm against that kind of thing, but when it comes to people like Shallon, it's not necessarily people taking what she said out of context and mocking her, it's people generally just not liking her because she sucks. She is still garbage, but to look at why she is garbage, we need to go through an overview of how she got to where she is now and why. So if you'll come along with me, I'm wasting too much time on this. A good place to set the stage, in my opinion, is a video called Prince Harry and Meghan Markle Divorcing, Why the Pandemic Will Ruin Their Marriage. This video is mainly reacting to that whole thing that happened a while back where people were saying that Meghan Markle was taking Prince Harry away from everyone. There was some weird shit going on, and basically just setting the stage here. I don't give a fuck about any of these people. I don't give a fuck about most celebrities. I am really not in the genre for this, but what I'm trying to demonstrate here is that no matter what side you're on, Shallon just gets it wrong because information seemingly does not exist. And I'm also not defending Markle because I really don't give a fuck about her. I know people like her and some people hate her, but there's a problem when you don't have evidence for either of those things, and things start to get into some pretty weird territory.
I called this from the beginning. I have a very low opinion of Meghan Markle, and it's sad because I started out loving her. Like, she's so beautiful, and she's like shaking everything up. She's divorcee, she's biracial, she's doing things her way. And then I realized what a manipulator she was.
So she begins And you'll see this for most things, saying that she was right about Markle because at first she was tricked into thinking that Markle was fun and cool because she's biracial or something. And then all of a sudden she realized the truth, and then she's been waiting for everybody else to realize it too because she wants to feel vindicated. It's kind of like how you get people like I'm Alec who are just like, I know exactly what's been happening from day one. I've known about this predator. And it's like, what, really? You never said anything about it before. And Shallon bringing up Markle being biracial, you might think like, oh, she's just commenting on that whole thing where people were talking about racism or whatever when she was initially brought to the public eye in this way. But Shallon herself has a history of doing things that are kind of racist. Now, I know what you're saying. People call everything racist these days, and I definitely agree with that. That's an overused word. A lot of the time when I see it on Twitter, I just think, well, what did this person do that was taken out of context that people got angry with them and decided to call them racist? What's the deal? But Shallon decides that she's going to go around telling people that are biracial to pick a race. She also made this video that we'll get to about K-pop people where she said that all the people look the same, and it's a whole thing. I just thought the biracial comment was funny coming from her. She goes on to say that she knows manipulators deeply and she's able to kind of psychoanalyze them. That's the thing with Shallon. It's not just guru gossip, it's talking about people as if she knows who they are deep down way more than they do, and as if she has any qualifications.
She is a woman who took a man away from his family through her own manipulation and machinations. She was in his ear, Markle sparkling him and being like, you're the true king. You don't need any of them. You're no one's puppet. You're a man all on your own. Look at everything you've accomplished. Look at everything you have to give to the world. Step away from them and towards me, the only person who sees that in you.
You'll come to see that she talks pretty fast and she's very loud. It's kind of like when people want you to think that they have authority on a situation, they'll just speak really fast and say a lot of things because it makes them sound like they have more to say than they actually do. A lot of the stuff that she says is just her rambling about garbage, and she'll occasionally throw in a statement that isn't really saying anything. It doesn't have any evidence to back it up. It's kind of like there was that one experiment that I forget the name of where there was a guy who would be on one side of a partition, and then on another side they would get someone to come in, and a guy in a lab coat would say push the buzzer, and every time it would happen the person on the other side would act like they were being shocked to basically push how far someone would go to do something that was clearly wrong in the face of an authority figure telling them to do so. And it was shocking how many people actually just kept going to the point where the guy, it looked like he had died to them, but they were like, the guy in the lab coat told me to, so it must be fine, right? It kind of ties back to that kind of thing where all of these people just say stuff as if they know what the fuck they're talking about. And it sucks because the majority of her audience, as said by her, under 18, they're girls who are looking to her for guidance, and she's just teaching them how to do stupid shit like this. She basically goes on about how Markle was inflating Harry's ego over the years specifically to isolate him so that she can start abusing him. And I know that some people really don't like Markle. As I've said before, I don't give a shit about her, but when you make accusations like this and you straight up call her an abuser or like an abuser, you need proof. If you wanted to talk about why you don't like her, you could have easily just said that she's one of those people who wants to, that she's acting like she owns the place or something. You could have said something a lot lighter than what you did, but you went straight to the abuse accusation.
The first thing an abuser wants to do is get their victim alone. Whether they're just going to take them out in a field and shoot them, or whether they're going to spend 5 years gaslighting them and removing them from their family so that they have complete opinion control over them. I believe I believe she's a morally corrupt person for removing this man from a family. Imperfect though it was still his.
She just assigns psychological traits to someone like she's making a new function in a block of code and she's just trying to assign it before she puts it in the damn thing. This isn't Java, this is a human being. She makes statements about these events that just clearly don't happen. Like there's this one point where she's complaining about this Instagram thing. Apparently they were complaining because they had their old Instagram account and they were trying to make a new one, and they wanted all of their followers to go to the new one, and Instagram wouldn't let them do that. It wouldn't just automatically transfer them, I mean.
I don't think she has any particular ties to her family. Like, where's her mom been lately? She only trotted that woman out when she needed the PR before the wedding. Like, where's she with the baby? It's all just very sus. It was Meghan who leaked to the press that William had had affairs so that she could put Kate in her place. Meghan and Harry have been behind the scenes trying to beg to Instagram. It's like, well, if we start a new account, just move all our followers over there. And they're like, no, we don't do that. We don't do that anymore. And they're like, but we're special. That's literally what Meghan has been saying. But we're exceptional. We're special. Your father is very possibly going to die from a virus that's sweeping the world that there's no known cure for. And your wife is like, but Instagram. But our Instagram.
And I couldn't find anything about this whatsoever, and I was watching D'Angelo's video when it came out and he couldn't find anything on it either. I was wondering if something got dug up. I couldn't find shit. I'm not just talking Google either because I know that they're pretty biased. I used DuckDuckGo as well because I'm pretty petty like that and I wanted to prove her wrong and I couldn't find shit. She also makes it even worse by saying that Markle cares about Instagram and that the pandemic is going around. And she thinks that Markle cares more about Instagram than her older relatives dying from the Rona. Lady, I need to know what drugs you're on, because I know that there's more than one. I'm gonna need the full list, because I can take all of them to forget about you. So when it comes to relationships, this is not just a one-time thing. This is almost every single time when she talks about relationships. Almost all of them, I think, like, bar one of the examples that I have this happening for the entire video. You'll see it. She takes one person and she makes them this Satan figure, this like really dominating, abusive figure that's bossing the other one around, and the other one is this super subordinate victim. It's kind of weird, honestly. There is no in-between. One of them is a psychopath and the other one's a victim, and the victim is helpless and Shallon needs to save them, while the other one, every single thing that they do is wrong, because every single thing that they do is under a lens of this is bad and let me spin it to be bad, and it's just really strange. Not only that, but she tends to divide on looks as well. Oftentimes it'll just be both people are shit to her. Like in an old blog that people found, she found that models are way too skinny to be attractive to her, but on the other hand, she's saying that most celebrities lie about how thin they are because they're way too fat to be models. Everyone gets shit from her, but she does divide on looks, because when she sees someone, like a man that she sees as a victim, she'll start going on about how evil the woman is, but if she thinks that the man is not someone that she wants to have sex with, like in one of the other videos that we'll get to, she puts his beta in the thumbnail and she makes them out to be this horrible person. And even when she's talking about them talking about their mental health and them talking about their suicide attempts and speaking out about that kind of thing, she'll immediately make it about how she doesn't want to have sex with them, therefore they're a terrible man.
I have so many problems. Like, well, are you like doing a lot of really intensive therapy? Are you staying sober? Are you doing yoga meditation? It's like, nah, party's back on. I hate his voice. I can't imagine him on top of me like snorting. Ugh.
You'll see quite a bit of misandry. Shallon is just a terrible person in general. She kind of hates everyone. So I know a lot of people are like, well, maybe she just hates everyone, there's no misandry, she just hates them as well as everyone else. But I would argue that there is some misandry here, because the way that she treats mental health regarding men, she'll say that some people fake their illnesses. Like she thinks that Selena Gomez fakes her illnesses. But with men, she specifically makes the statement like men cannot be sexually assaulted, or men shouldn't date if they have anxiety because they need to get the fuck out of the way.
Maybe your partner doesn't have Lyme disease a la Justin Bieber, but maybe he's depressed. Oh, I'm so depressed. He suffers from anxiety. Oh, that's interesting. A white man, most of them are, a white man on planet Earth suffers from anxiety and depression. I'm not saying that they don't. Some people do, absolutely. But you know what? They need to get the fuck out of the way and stop dating. They need to get the fuck out of the way. They don't get to keep dating. This is why I have an issue with dating people who are guys who are a lot older. First of all, I know what you're gonna say. Shallon, you date younger dudes. I know that. But I don't date teenagers, first of all. I don't date teens. I have my limits. But like, women but to such a lesser degree, have the ability to sexually traumatize a guy the way men can sexually traumatize women. Women are pleasers. We're hardwired by society to please guys. So if he's used to having this whole sexual relationship and you're brand new to this, he's not going to be the one pumping the brakes. You're going to be the one stepping up and like going beyond your boundaries. And like, boys, it's not really the same thing. I mean, I'm not never, certainly. And like, I'm not saying a boy can't be raped, a boy can't be molested. Obviously they can, but it happens less. Die mad about it. It's true.
She's basically like one of those nice girls. If they can't do anything for her or they won't date her and she's such a nice person, maybe they should date her, then they're just awful. Completely. This is what Shallon thinks. If she doesn't want to have sex with them, they're terrible. I actually compare Shallon to one of those Twitter checkmark people, because she's very much in the realm of playing the victim and then claiming that everyone else is doing that as well. She makes a huge issue against one group of people just purely on what they look like, and then she tries to act like everything can be solved just by examining these two extremes, and then she acts like she's just the savior of everything because she's the one who's pointing it out. It's just annoying to everyone at the end of the day. I should stop going on this train of thought. It's not helping. But back to the Markle video. Yes, we're still talking about that. She claims that Markle was the one that came out with the affair in the family and the news about someone having an affair. It puts Kate in her place, and there's this whole like those British TV shows, those period dramas that they have, like Downton Abbey or whatever. I feel like Shallon thinks that everything is that. Again, I can't find shit about this, and maybe that's just because the way that she speaks is so fucking annoying that I have no idea what to look up in the first place, but I'm pretty sure I haven't found anything that can actually say that. If you don't like Markle, it's fine to speculate, but when it's someone like Shallon who is coming from a place as if she has the detail and the sources to back it up, kind of weird how she doesn't have any of those things.
I imagine this must be an incredibly lonely and isolating time for Prince Harry, and I do feel sorry for him. He got taken in by a con man.
Have you been studying this like I told you? Oh, I have, Ted, I have, yeah.
Oh wait, I can't use that Father Ted clip anymore because comedy is offensive. I forgot that. I think that's the thing that mainly gets me about Shallon. A lot of people in the guru gossip sphere, as much as I hate them, they still do that thing where they use like a bare minimum news article to speculate off of. There's still something to speculate from, even if they're just reading the headline, which again is terrible, but with Shallon there's not even that. The headline doesn't exist. She makes the headline herself, and she doesn't base it off of anything. She acts like her word is the authority on the subject and she doesn't need anything else. She actually did work for a lot of gossip guru companies. In particular, there was this one called Star Magazine. It looks like one of those terrible, like, leeching off of absolutely everything a celebrity does type of magazines. She was brought on those shows as well, like the Wendy Williams show and a bunch of other things. I have my problems with Wendy Williams. I think she's a terrible human being, and I was thinking of doing a video on her sometime, but it just goes to show that these people are really just fucked in the head in general. So when she decided that she didn't want to be on the mainstream news anymore, she decided to go onto this kick of offering advice about sex, love, life, live, laugh, love, and all of this stuff on her channel, where she put a lot of like pink shit in there and did the whole thing about like, I'm just a girl navigating the world, blah blah blah, and it's kind of nauseating. I feel like she uses this to kind of excuse her behavior. She kind of reminds me of Amberlynn Reid a little bit, where she'll act all cutesy and doing all the trendy things and using all this trendy vernacular that nauseates me, but then she'll turn around and do something absolutely fucking terrible. She, for example, because of all of the I'm your mentor type of thing that she does with, you know, giving people advice, it brings up some questions that she has a series called Evil Week, which include things like teaching people how to cheat on their significant others. And one of the reasons why is because men are shitty, and you should take advantage of men being shitty, because your inability to communicate your unhappiness with your partner should not be taken into account. You should just go cheat instead, because that's... I'm trying to think of a way to word this logic, but there is no logic.
You guys are tired of getting manipulated. I hear it all the time. You're tired of getting cheated on. So is the answer to become the thing you fear and hate the most, a cheater? It can be. The way you manipulate anyone is to find their weakness, identify their shadow self, and press. Okay? We act like men are complicated. They're not. They're shitty and they lie.
So if you're not satisfied, you shouldn't open a dialogue. You should just violate trust immediately because it's men. This attitude is just giving me brain ulcers. I don't even know if that's a thing. I think I have them. Another one is her saying that you should use people's weaknesses against them to either blackmail them by saying that you know the weaknesses and you will destroy them if they don't do what you say, without them knowing that you know their weaknesses. It's very evil. In fact, in one of these, she's just straight up cackles like she's an anime villain. I'm just gonna play this.
And think, that's a girl I want to pick a fight with. And you know what? She was right. That's a smart woman. A stupid woman thinks the opposite. A stupid woman says, ooh, Shallon looks weak.
I feel like Shallon is just one of those like JoJo villains who would just fake being attacked and act like they were losing, and then they just start cackling and unleash their stand power. It's just kind of strange how the world is right now. I remember, I think it was either last year or in 2018 or something, when the Captain Marvel thing was revealed about the extended scene where she breaks a man's arm because she was offended by him. And people on Twitter were defending this, even though if it was the other way around, they would be condemning that man as a villain. When Captain Marvel does it, it's fine because man, white man bad. I hate this universe. Like, people were disguising it as the woman was just defending herself though, even though he just said something to her and she could have easily just either said something back or ignored him and walked away, but she had to break his arm and it was celebrated. And Shallon is just one of those people that is completely fine with this kind of logic, and I don't understand why. Even in somewhere in Europe, there's that one of those stupid fuckers in cabinet is talking about how they want to make misogyny laws where you basically it's going to be used where you can't fucking disagree with a woman, otherwise you'll get thrown in jail. But there is no misandry laws to match this whatsoever. People just ignore this kind of thing. Society is rife with it. So Shallon is just a symptom. That's why I'm comparing her to Twitter checkmarks. It's everywhere. But it's apparently deemed okay and you don't need to talk about it because it's a man. Also, there was another video where she claims that she made out with Harry Styles. I'm trying to find the words to explain this clip before you... Just wording... absolute faggotry.
And they were walking one way and me and her were walking the other way. And Harry, like, he just looked at me, he's like, "You're gorgeous." And I was like, "Yeah." And he like pushed me up against the wall and it was like this drive-by makeout. It was like 30 seconds of snogging. And his friend's like, "Mate, oi, come on, Harry." And my friend was up there and she's like, were you making out with Harry Styles? And I was like, I might have just hallucinated. Did I hallucinate that? Did that happen? She's like, "Yes." What? And I'm like, I don't know.
You've been studying this like I told you? Oh, I have, Ted, I have, yeah.
So the first video that people really looked at when they decided to critique Shallon after discovering her was the Ellen video about Ellen DeGeneres abusing her wife. And these are just full-on abuse accusations. There is a diagnosis. And again, Shallon is not qualified. This is just her being a cunt.
So, if you're new to this channel, there's two things that I love: crazy people and celebrities. Here's some things that I know about Ellen. She is so mean to that wife of hers.
Where is the evidence? Probably the same place Atlantis is. She opens the video by saying that she loves crazy people and celebrities, and then she goes on to say that she definitively knows that Ellen is a terrible person and that she's terrible to that wife of hers. She goes on to say that Ellen does not want Portia to have a child despite the fact that Portia really wants to, and when you look it up you will find the direct opposite of that being true.
What Ellen did to her allegedly that was always so bad was that she refused to let this woman have a baby.
No, Portia doesn't want kids. She doesn't like the squealing when they're in a pool. That high-pitched squealing of joy that they have.
Studying this like I told you? Oh, I have, Ted.
There's also a narrative about how, again, with the dominant abuser and victim dynamic, where Ellen is making all the money so Portia has to stay at home and be the subjugated whatever. It's weird.
What does that woman do all day? Nothing. She does nothing. Like, they probably have a billion servants and cleaning ladies. She's not cleaning the house. She's probably not cooking the dinner. Like, all she wants is just a baby. You have one person who is essentially a tyrant, right? This is my way, this is the highway. And I had heard so many stories from behind the scenes that is exactly how she behaved at work. For the hair psychopathy checklist. So the way this works is there's like bullet points and you can get a score of 0, which this doesn't apply at all. 1 applies to a certain extent, or fully applies 2 points.
This is especially unhealthy, the way that she views relationships, because in one of her other videos she mentions how she, as like a 40-year-old woman now, dates 21-year-olds and younger. So she in the past has said that she likes 16-year-old boys, and she was like 30 when she said that, so she's a definite, what is it, a feverphile? And the way that she describes it is that she will manipulate them and shape their personalities by guilting them and gaslighting them, describing it as guidance from an older figure. So it's really disturbing how she continuously sees every single relationship that she encounters, even though she knows nothing about them, in the same dynamic that she then does herself.
I historically have always dated younger guys. My boyfriend before him was 22. One before him was 21. Might have been a 20-year-old in there at some point. But like, the best breakup I ever had with someone was with my boyfriend who was 21 at the time. He didn't know enough to lie. Do you know what I mean? He was just very honest. He's like, "I don't know that I can give you what you want right now. I'm in school, I'm playing sports, blah, blah, blah. We're long distance, it's too much." And I was like, thank you. Older guys have this idea that you have to just tolerate their bullshit or they're just gonna replace you. Dudes my age and older Their motto seems to be, oh, you don't like it when I stand you up? I'll replace you and go back on Tinder. Upgrade from a model 5 years younger than you. I found that younger dudes take instruction better. And I really do think they take it better because I am older. When I've called boys out, my younger boyfriends out on bad behavior, their response has shocked me. It's, oh, okay, I'm sorry, I'll stop doing that. They're adapting in a good way. I'm like, don't do this. You don't waste my time. You don't, because I'm hanging out with other males, you don't do that. Or I can replace you. And they're, oh, that's my line. I told that to girls. Oh, yeah, shoes on the other foot, my dude. It's not too cool, huh? You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Yo, let's get a puppy. There's plenty of them out there.
I'm not alleging anything because I don't have any evidence, but when you look at the stuff that she herself says, it starts to get very concerning, and I really hope that those men are okay. She also calls young men puppies because, as she puts it, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but you should get a puppy.
New tricks. Yo, let's get a puppy.
Yes, 911, this is the post right here, but let's get to the worst part of the video. So she then claims that she knows about psychology and she can tell that Ellen is a bad person and just... I need to play this for you first because there's so much to break down about how wrong this is that I need you to see it first.
This doesn't apply at all. One applies to a certain extent, or fully applies 2 points. So the bar for clinical psychopathy is a score of 30 or higher. So maybe she's not Ted Bundy level 39, but do you want to deal with someone who's even level 25? I have noticed this throughout my own personal, non-peer-reviewed research of psychopaths, is a love for animals. Do you know who loved animals so much that they made a ton of animal protection laws? Hitler.
So how on earth do I address absolutely everything that's wrong with this? First, Shallon poisons the well by immediately mentioning people like Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy or people who are generally bad people. As someone who is a fan of true crime, it also saddens me because the more that people like Shallon do this, the more it discourages people talk about psychology in general. Like, look, I'm not a professional, but I feel like I can take studies and other things, like a true crime video that I'm working on right now. I feel like I can use those things to extrapolate on what professionals have already said, and people like Shallon, because of how terrible it is that what she does, people then criticize her use of psychology, and other people tend to get scared about using psychology whatsoever, and that sucks because I feel like one of the best ways that you can encourage more people to become well versed in psychology is to use it yourself in a very responsible manner. I have I think it's Yale or Harvard, I found a playlist of the lectures on behavioral psychology, and I'm actually using them as a resource because I have a lot of studies and citations and things that I want to use when I make that kind of thing, and even if I'm not qualified, I think that it still helps as evidence, and I want to encourage more people to do the same thing. People like Shallon are just setting us back. And then talking about how Ellen might seem innocent in certain factors, she also poisons the well by saying, well, Hitler liked animals. When you bring up Hitler, you know things are just gonna go downhill. She actually compared a boomer talk show host to a failed painter who did the bad. Now in these online tests there is a scale. She acts like people who have any conditions like this are automatically evil, when it has been shown that a lot of people who have certain sociopathic, psychopathic traits should go into business because they will be able to function in a more ambitious way because they are more detached from certain things, like less emotional. They're better to make the harder decisions. I'm really fucking emotional, so I would never be in that environment, but there are some people who are just the opposite of me. That's why you need those people. She acts like it's a bad thing. If Ellen was actually psychopathic or sociopathic, which are different things by the way, and she was suited to the kind of cutthroat environment that she's in, I would say more power to her, because if she's not harming people, then she's just being her. So I was gonna say something like, it takes 5 seconds of Google searching to confirm that Shallon is false, but I actually kind of stopped myself there because I think that the problem is, when I say 5 seconds, obviously you need more than 5 seconds, but what I mean I think people in general mean when they say 5 seconds of research, is that you start off seeing that the thing that you're talking about, that you thought was one way is actually the other way, and from that 5 seconds, that 5 seconds should become hours or whatever else for you to actually determine what you really believe now. I think that the problem with the fact that we have to say stuff like 5 seconds Google search is that people nowadays don't even do the 5 seconds, and that's the problem. And the funny thing is that people who don't have credentials act like they don't have to provide proof because they they're like, oh, well, my credentials, blah, blah, blah. But people who actually do have credentials are all about that citation. If you look on somebody like Mental Health Advocate's channel, he always links sources. He has his credentials in the background and in his description and everything to everything, because being a professional ingrains in you the idea that you have to provide sources for everything. So it's really counterintuitive, but people seem to keep falling for this sort of thing. All Shallon is doing is spreading rumors to young people and further dividing people in a state where we're basically just divided as it is. It's terrible. But she gets away with it for so long because it's a niche thing. We had no idea about it, but again, I think that the huge issue in general is the fact that this niche has those standards that you can get away with anything. And that's the fucking problem. You ever just miss those days where you could drink from the skulls of your enemies? So, as people started criticizing her, she had about 340,000 subscribers, and then she lost about 15k before she hit her subscriber count, and to this day she has hidden her subscriber count. Her views seem to have gone down significantly, so I assume that she just kept losing, but she still has a core audience that really like her. Again, as I said, I'd like to think that the people that she attracted are the same as her. They seem to be the kind of people who would just gossip about someone without any evidence because they don't want the evidence, they just want to believe a certain thing. Like, if they really fucking hate a celebrity, they'll know that if Shallon hates that celebrity, she'll just trash talk the celebrity without any evidence, and as long as they can get that kind of thing, that's fine. But the problem with her core audience is, and you'll see this when we get to the current day stuff, is that Shallon will inevitably be eaten by them. Her standards are basically, I'll say what you want to hear, and when she says something that they don't want to hear, they'll just immediately cannibalize her. So then there's a part in the Ellen video where she gets distracted by the Olympics, and she says that she doesn't care about it unless it's the sexual Olympics, and makes a comment about doing sexual things.
Oh, they just postponed the Olympics. Does not affect my life in any way. Like, I needed that extra year to train. I'm sure I'll be at this one for the sexual arts. Is that an Olympic? I don't know. I can get both my legs behind my head if that helps.
To add to the abuse and manipulation side of things, she has a video using the title The Signs of a Toxic Relationship, and this one is very strange because she starts off reading a Playboy article, and now I know that Playboy has had very interesting things in the past. They actually did used to publish like civil rights things and other really interesting stuff, but nowadays it's basically like Vice or BuzzFeed or any of those other really shitty type of things. She starts off reading the article and then says she was bored, and then just the entire thing is her saying that couples who go into business together to make clothing or perfume are bad. The entire thing is just her hating on people making stuff together as a business. And then she just calls celebrity perfume like smelly, and I get it. I don't like that sort of shit either. I'm just not interested, but that doesn't mean that that's a bad thing.
Know her from a different perspective. An intimate glimpse into the life of the 22-year-old mogul as directed and interviewed by her partner. Did you fall asleep halfway through that? I did. This is the most generic. You could apply this. You could be interviewing Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and this is the deck that you would use. You just change the age. I examine celebrity and give you guys things that we can take into our own life. So what is the lesson here, right? What's the lesson here? Well, the lesson is don't bring that boyfriend into your career. Guys, there's only a few rules in terms of mixing like categories, you know, in terms of romance. Do not get a tattoo for a guy. Don't cast him in your music video, Kiss of Death. And maybe don't put him in your Playboy layout. I just feel like celebrities go through this and they all think they're so unique. It's like, oh, no. We can come out with a clothing collection together. No. We can do a perfume together. Chloe and Lamar Unbreakable. Remember that? Garbage fire. It literally smelled like garbage too.
And then she just relates some stuff back to herself. She's just like, I see manipulators when I know them because of real life. It's like, good for you. What does that have to do with these people? There's another one called Dating a Guy with a Bad Temper, and this one is what I like to call the joys of context. So she sees this extremely short clip of Justin Bieber and whatever the lady's name is that he's with, who are just doing weird things.
He fucking karate chops her in the head hard, like hard arm, hard thing, just boom, and keeps on walking, and she's smiling and laughing.
Like he karate chops her, and to me it looks like banter, but again, I don't know the context of this clip. It doesn't seem like there's any more to it, and she starts railing on this shit, saying that he is hurting her and the karate chop went down so fucking hard. And again, it might look a certain way to her based on her biases, and then me defending what's happening here might look like that depending on my biases, but I think that my claim is a bit better than hers because I'm saying, like, look, we don't have context, but it doesn't look that bad to me, rather than it clearly exaggerating shit that it's at some point just the reach is so far that it doesn't even happen. It's just like random shit that you're making up. So then Shallon goes completely apeshit and starts saying that this was something that if it happened to her, she would not stand for it. Good on you, Shallon. But that's not you in that clip.
But he hit her hard. That would have been a very purposeful kick to the solar plexus. It would have been kick to the balls. Kick to the balls. So we've got a lot of strange instances with these two. You know, we've got his outburst at the basketball game. We've got him skating off into the sunset in Times Square. We've got him slamming a car door on her and karate chopping her in the forehead. Like, what's going on? You know what's going on? A parent-child dynamic. This is why. This is it. What galvanizes for me was not any of the physical stuff or the karate chopping. It was him getting out of the car and skating, and the one where he skated away from her. Because in his mind, she can take care of herself because she's mom. He's the kid and he only has to worry about himself.
She even puts words in her thumbnails like beta or when a man plays the victim, or like, you know, it really just like her heavier claims are in her thumbnail. And I believe that this is because people just don't really look at thumbnails. If you'll take a second look at my thumbnail, you'll see that I hid the word faggot in it somewhere. And then if you take another look, you'll see that I'm actually lying, and I made you think that I did because you didn't pay attention to the thumbnail. And that's not a bad thing. I think that just attention getters are attention getters for a reason. They lead you to the actual content, and the more that something gets your attention and leads you on, the less you're going to look at the thing that initially got your attention, because it's just like, oh, I'm here now I'm distracted. But the scummy thing is when she just puts heavy claims like abuser or playing the victim or something like that in the thumbnail, but she is not, well, she's too much of a pussy to put it in the title, or she doesn't want to get some allegations of making allegations thrown her way. So you've seen the video of her saying that white men should get the fuck out of the way when they're, well, suffering from mental illness like humans do, because they shouldn't talk about that kind of thing. They're white males. But the clip of the nobody asked you about your mental health type of thing is actually from the video that we're about to go into. This video is called The Truth About Pete Davidson, Ariana Grande, When Guys Play the Victim, and the thumbnail refers to him as a beta male who manipulates women. So this guy went on Charlemagne the God's show, and he was specifically asked by Charlemagne about his mental illnesses, about suicidal ideation, about self-harm. All of these were direct questions that were worded very, very directly, and it shows that Shallon didn't watch the interview because she goes on about, well, her main point that she goes on about is that he just says this shit out of nowhere because he wants sympathy, even though he comes across as a pretty strong individual who is just trying to talk about it for an awareness type of thing, and he's being directly asked about it because this is the type of atmosphere that's, you know, in the show.
We're going to talk about Ariana Grande today, and not just Ariana, her garbage fire of an ex, Pete Davidson. The thing that I had a problem with Pete was not that he's bipolar, not great, not that he's got borderline personality disorder, also not great, but that he doesn't care to fix any of it. He also said that he's a cutter. He cuts his chest and then he hides the cuts with tattoos. I was a cutter for a while, for a few years, and it is truly one of the most shameful chapters in my life. And I don't just like speak about it, and I wouldn't just speak about it to Charlemagne the God when I don't believe Charlemagne asked.
What does cutting look like?
Shallon's entire, I guess, secondary basis is that she believes that he's a beta male and he's playing the victim to try and get back at people. That's her whole thing. If you talk about something that's happened to you and she doesn't like that you're doing that, she'll claim that you're doing it for revenge and try to make you look like a terrible person because she is a victim blamer. She thinks that Pete is a beta male because he openly talks about mental health and tries to fight the stigma against it. I have no words. I mean, the attitude towards men regarding mental illness is already terrible enough. I have been railing against the feminization of mental health care for years. I think that's a huge problem because men deal with it differently, and there's nothing wrong with saying that men and women have differences. They need to have things that actually help them. You can't just dump something on them and then go, oh well, you know, deal with it. On one hand, you have people on Tumblr who self-diagnose, just say everything is regarding their mental health so they don't take responsibility, and then on the other hand, you have Shallon, who claims that every single time somebody talks about mental health that they're just doing it to avoid responsibility. And this is where we are now. People are still dying. And again, I'm making the comment about the white men thing because I think that it's really not her place to just start telling people that they shouldn't date because she doesn't like them. I completely understand if somebody wants to take a break from dating or social stuff because of their mental health, and people taking a break in that aspect is totally fine. But the way that she's talking about it, she's arguing as if it's something that should be mandated almost because they shouldn't have the right to... My brain just stopped working. Shallon is just making me very angry. My mental health has been in the worst place ever from the start of the year onwards, and I don't even know why I'm talking about this. I think I'm just angry. So she calls this Pete Davidson guy a garbage fire and claims that he doesn't care about his mental health, despite the fact that in the interview he specifically talks about medication and how he does care. She also views mental health as something that you, mental illness really, as something that you fix or get rid of. So what I mean is, let's say somebody has gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria itself is something that she thinks can just be directly removed, and if somebody is trying to deal with it, as in the reality, like you deal with it but it never really goes away, she seems to think that you dealing with it and acknowledging that it will never really go away is you not caring about your mental health because you're not trying to find a way to directly rip it from your brain. She also thinks this about bipolar. She says,
Pete went on Charlemagne the God's radio show. His doctors are always adjusting his medication. I mean, for bipolar, you can't be medicated for borderline personality disorder because it's your personality. There's no like cool pill. So he's going to rehab in service of getting more drugs. That's what that means. I go to rehab so I can con my doctors into giving me more drugs.
Because of the viewpoint that she has that you have to directly take something out of your whole consciousness as a mental illness instead of dealing with it and acknowledging that it's part of you. She also views medication as not working because she comes from the premise that medication should completely remove the mental illness rather than helping you cope with it. This is a huge problem in general because people think that it works like the flu, like, oh, I have the flu, I'm just going to take some medication, the flu will go away. That's not how it works. The mental illness is basically a part of you to the point where if you have medication that's too strong, it might just... A lot of people have the fear as well that it might just remove your personality and make you a zombie because it's so entrenched in who you are that you have to just find a way to cope around it yourself. And that sounds really sucky, but hey, depression is sucky. As someone who has been on medication for extreme anxiety myself, it does feel a bit strange, and one of the issues that I had that made me even more anxious and had even more anxiety attacks, you know, I'm talking about the nasty ones that mimic strokes, that make you like hyperventilate and start snotting everywhere, like those ones suck, is because I thought that it would remove my personality and I really needed the medication, so I went on it anyway and it was fine. So I really don't think that it's helpful to say that people should not take care of themselves in this way. She also claims that people who take medication are drug addicts. This is real. So in the next point, Charlemagne asks, so what does cutting look like? This is from the real interview. This is a direct clip from the real interview because Shallon cuts it out. She dishonestly cuts out any clips of him being asked so that she can paint the stigma and also say that nobody asked, which I think first said that she didn't watch the interview. Now I'm just starting to think that she did, but she cut it because she's dishonest. And she claims that he is a manipulator.
Pete, on one hand, like, idolizes his mother and his sister, but he's got borderline personality disorder. So something bad happened in that house. He said he has suicidal thoughts, but insisted he would never commit suicide because he has a mom and a sister and doesn't want to hurt them. You know what him bringing that up smacks of to me? Revenge. Revenge. If you're not gonna commit suicide, if that's just like not on the table, why would you even bring it up?
Just to be clear, I think the best way to counter people like Shallon is to open up about your own mental health issues because you're fighting the stigma and showing that you're not ashamed. So I'm going to be doing that by countering with a couple of my own mental health struggles as well. And if you want to do that in the comments, you will find that people care about you and you're welcome to tell me. I think I encourage it. We're in a time where everybody just thinks everything sucks right now, so if you want to vent and you want to counter this as well, counter the stigma, I'm all for it. I encourage it. You'll find a lot of people who really care about what you have to say. So he says that he's a cutter and he cuts and then covers it with tattoos.
He also said that he's a cutter. He cuts his chest and then he hides the cuts with tattoos. I was a cutter for a while, for a few years, and it is truly one of the most shameful chapters in my life. And I don't just like speak about it, and I wouldn't just speak about it to Charlemagne the God when I don't believe Charlemagne asked.
Shallon says she doesn't know why he does this, says nobody asked, and then goes on to talk about how she was a cutter and she's very ashamed of this period in her life. She is also using his video to talk about mental health in her own way, but instead of being encouraging about it, she's directly telling him to shut up so that she can talk about it instead. It's pretty selfish. She also claims that she doesn't go around just talking about how she's a cutter, but you've directly manipulated the clip to then engineer it so that you talk about yourself being a cutter, so I am pretty suspicious. So throughout my teenage years I was also a cutter myself. For me it was more horrible guilt and self-perception and the whole thing that depression makes you feel, where you legitimately think that you suck the joy and general good things out of people's life because you're like a black hole of terrible. Now I haven't cut around, it's been like 4 years since then because I've been through in like a lot of therapy. I went through medication and I'm actually pretty well, despite the fact that I have been going through an incredibly bad depression thing since the start of the year. It's nowhere near as bad as it was. If it was actually as bad, I wouldn't be making content. I wouldn't even be on camera. I think that that is something that a lot of people have gone through, and the reason that a lot of people cut, like what my reason was that you're kind of relieving that stress that was building up inside you, but there's also like a layer of numbness that's inside you where you have all of this pain, but on top of it, it feels like the pain isn't even real because you just try to protect yourself by removing your emotions to a sense, or like disassociating from them to the point where you just kind of feel nothing at all. You don't feel happy, you don't feel sad. I was ashamed of my past at first, but here's the thing. I have some of my dot points written down here, so I'm sorry for looking down. I was ashamed of my past, but being ashamed was preventing me from sharing my story. And I think that the most important thing is to encourage other people to seek help for it, because it's not something to be ashamed of, it's just something that you're going through and you need help for it. I acknowledge that it happened. It's like my history and my mental illness is knitted together to form me, and the reason that I can go forward and feel better about it and feel braver about it is because I know that speak out about this kind of thing, I'm just knitting more positive into the me that already exists. So it's like you're working with your mental illness to make yourself a better person by acknowledging your faults but also not letting them define you, and part of that is not being ashamed of them anymore, just going, okay, I have this is a thing, but I'm gonna try and use it in a positive way. And that's weird coming from me considering this is Wish for Death Island, but I think that's something important to consider. And I don't think that Shallon being ashamed of her own past is a bad thing, because I think that everyone deserves to go through that to go to the better part of it. Like, I think that her being ashamed is just gonna end up with her like working out that she shouldn't be. Everyone deserves the right to just go through that at their own pace, so I'm not gonna criticize her for it, but I think that it's incredible that she almost expects Pete to be ashamed of himself, and the fact that he's not and that he's talking about it makes her angry. And I really think that she just needs to stop for a second. She also makes the claim that Pete does not care about his own mental health, which I said is not true. She does this more than once as well. When we get to the Justin Bieber obsession, because that's a thing, she also claims that Selena Gomez does not think about her own mental health, which is stupid.
So many problems. I have so many problems. Like, well, are you like doing a lot of really intensive therapy? Are you staying sober? Are you doing yoga meditation? It's like, nah, party's back on. I hate his voice. I can't imagine him on top of me like snorting. Ugh.
She acts like they don't care simply because they cope differently. When she says something like someone's using medication because they're a bad mental health advocate or something, it's just them coping in a way that she doesn't like. She's just really scummy. She also says,
Pete, on one hand, like, idolizes his mother and his sister, but he's got borderline personality disorder. So something bad happened in that house.
Because BPD is like trauma driven. So she's basically saying you love your mom, but like I think that they did something because I apparently know more about your household than you do. She takes psychoanalysis to just another level by claiming to know what happened in his house. Trauma can happen in places outside of your fucking household. There's a whole wide world out there. Fucking obviously. Shallon acts like people being functional and having fun means that they cannot, like, it's basically like, oh, you have to revoke your mental illness card because you should be a victim as soon as you, like, you should act a certain way. Like, you can't have a functioning life, you can't be productive, you can't get up every morning and have a schedule and go exercising and have fun, go party or anything like that. Shallon is just impossible with these standards. So my specific thing I have is avoidance personality disorder. It's basically where that like extreme sense of anxiety comes from, and then because of the extreme amount of anxiety I get really tired, and as soon as I get tired and the fatigue starts to come in, that's when the depression sneaks in, and it's like a never-ending cycle between the two of those things. It's why I can be very standoffish and often very cynical towards other people, and like sometimes I don't mean to be and I have to redraft, but it's like one of the flaws that you kind of develop with that kind of thing, and it's something that you just have to work on. The cure for it is basically exposure, like speaking publicly, doing stuff like this, hanging out with your friends more, you know, going out in real life. I'll genuinely love to hang out with my friends, but at the back of my mind I'm also kind of terrified to be there because one, I think that I'm ruining everything, because it's like that extreme idea that even a friend that I've known for like 7 years is like probably will realize one day how fucking terrible I am as a person and just drop me, and I wouldn't blame them, or that I'm secretly ruining every single thing that I'm a part of when I go hang out with people. That thought never leaves you, and I don't like it's never left me since forever, but it's something that you just kind of have to push through because it does get better over time. I think that there will be a time when I go to hang out with someone and I don't feel like that afterwards, and I'm rooting for that day, but now I've gotten way better to cope with the fact that it does happen. And I'm one of those people who, the way that I cope with my anxiety and depression is that I always constantly have to be doing something. When I'm not doing something and when I'm like, you know, relaxing from burnout, my brain is making me feel guilty because it's like the minute that you don't do something is the minute that your future is basically over. You fucking failed, you're wasting time. I just operate in a pretty packed schedule type of way, and I'm really bad with dealing with burnout because I basically push it to the point where I can't ignore it anymore, and then I crash, and then I just keep going and do the same thing over again. And my point with that is somebody who looks like they're on the go all the time and looks like they're functioning, just because they look like they're functioning does not mean that they don't have terrible anxiety to deal with.
If you're not gonna commit suicide, if that's just like not on the table, why would you even bring it up?
Pete says that the only reason that he didn't kill himself is because his loved ones would be hurt by his absence, and that's a very important thing. Yet Shallon says that he's telling everyone this because he wants to get revenge on his family, and that if you don't actually commit suicide, you shouldn't talk about it. She claims that she has had suicidal thoughts in the past, and yet she's talking like this. This is one of the biggest groups of people who will think that they're a burden on everyone because of their own existence. That's what mental illnesses do to you, and she's just saying this like you shouldn't talk about it. She has a 6 smile on her face for the entire thing.
God asked what kind of IV drips he gets for Crohn's disease. I bet he didn't. I bet he didn't. I bet Pete volunteered this, just like he volunteered that he has anxiety, maybe because you're stuffing your body full of things like acid.
At one point, with all of the attempts that I had, the only reason why I didn't do it was because I couldn't find out how to word what I wanted to say in the goodbye letter. There were so many things that I wanted to say, but I would spend time just trying to figure it out, and I didn't know. I want to be a writer, that's my whole thing, and I have notebooks everywhere. I have a notebook on my desk for home, I have one in my bag that I take everywhere with me, and the notebook beside my bed used to be filled with like dream interpretation and other things to help me with stories, and over time I was noticing that it started to be filled with me working out how to say goodbye letters. That was the only thing that was in it, and that kind of tied in with me just like giving up on everything. I'm painting now, as you've seen in my other videos. I've started digitally painting, but I had given up drawing. I'd given up everything because nothing felt fun anymore. Everything felt grey. I also felt like I didn't deserve to be happy, and through working out what I needed to say, I realized that time was just passing anyway. I was living anyway, and the only way that I'm going to tell people what I wanted to say is that if I live to actually work it out and tell them in person. Not only that, but there are other things that I don't know that I want to say yet because I haven't experienced life in that way yet, and the only way to do that is to stick around. Now, to some people that might seem like an incredibly small thing, but if that small thing helps you stick around and live, that small thing might as well be the size of a mountain because it helped you. And if you want to treat it that way, that's your personal story and I'm not going to take that from you. Suicidal people need to know that if you hang on to a small thing, you shouldn't be shamed for it. And Shallon is doing the opposite. Shallon is terrible. So in one of her other videos, she first did finger quotes when she talked about Justin Bieber's health issues because, again, if Shallon doesn't think that you have health issues, Shallon's word is law. I think one of the problems is that she again, to talk about the way that she speaks, she fits the narrative by lying and talks so fast that you think that it's all cohesive, but you don't stop to think about like whether or not she's actually saying anything. She takes advantage of the fact that a lot of people listen to videos instead of actually watch, so she tries to cram all of her opinions into the same kind of paragraph. It's like those people like Downward Thrust and all of those other like nonsense type of video essayist channels where they act like they say shit but they don't really say anything at all. And the reason why is I think that it plays off of a parasocial relationship that people have with their audience, where the audience will kind of think, well, they're speaking to me when I don't know who I'm speaking to, right? People like her kind of invite that kind of thing because if they act like human Rorschach tests where they'll say something so vague that you will be the one who acts like it means something personal, that when people criticize them, people get mad and act like, oh, well, they're criticizing me personally because you kind of confuse your own meaning with what they're saying. Shallon says something and then two of her followers think, oh, she's talking about this thing in particular, and they put their own meaning onto it and they project onto it. I come along and I criticize her and I say, well, she's not really saying anything at all. Those two people will get really mad because they're like, are you saying that what I think she says is invalid? And it's like, I'm not talking about your experience. You're the one who's projecting it onto her words. I'm criticizing the fact that she's using this against you. It's kind of like how, funnily enough, CinemaSins as well as a good example of this, where if they say something that I disagree with, then that's obviously satire, but if they say something that I love, it's like the telling it like it is type of comedy and not satire. So it's just, which one is it? It can't change based on what I think. You can't just fold like that. Shallon has a major thing for Justin Bieber. When she was 27 in 2010 and onwards, she had a string of tweets that talks about 16-year-old Justin in sex dreams and how she wanted to fuck him. This then resulted in a series of videos about Selena Gomez and how much Shallon just hates her because Shallon is obsessed with Justin and Selena was in the way. Now, yes, Shallon did make a video about Justin and claim that he was hitting people and all that, but she still has an incredibly weird thing about him. This next video is called The Truth About Selena Gomez, Bipolar, and How People Make Excuses for Bad Behavior. The thumbnail also says lying for attention. She's making the assumption that Gomez is lying about the disorders that she has and the health issues that she has based on basically nothing.
We're going to talk about our favorite whisper goose, our mortal enemy, Selena Gomez. Realization, in her own words, that she is bipolar. Now, before we get started, I just want to let you know that I'm not here to shit on people with bipolar disorder. She doesn't seem to care about herself. She doesn't seem to care about her health, about her reputation, and about her future. And her behavior points to that. So we've talked about Selena so much in this channel, and here we call her the Whisper Goose because that's what she sounds like when she sings, I'm gonna be good. I think I'd rather fight Selena Gomez than a goose. Because geese have that dew claw.
She also calls Gomez a whisper goose and makes fun of the way that Gomez sings. Now, I'm fine with that. I think they're making fun of people, so okay. But I think that the context of it is the problem. Because she's talking about stuff like, she says later on that she thinks that Selena Gomez is going to overdose and she's like relishing in when Selena Gomez is going to die. And then she calls her a whisper goose. It's like, that's a little bit distasteful.
You know, right there, they can swipe. Selena doesn't have that. She just has a bunch of bad tattoos. But we do know that Selena has an issue with alcohol. And she started ramping up her drinking after her kidney transplant. Selena was spotted doing shots at the Four Seasons Hotel. I actually worked for the company that broke this story at the time. I know exactly who the source was. It was a photographer. They weren't lying. She was downing shots when? Right after Justin and Hailey's engagement. Just, you know, I could probably help you. I'm not going to because you annoy me and bore me at the same time, which is a deadly combo. She is alone. When she overdoses, and she will, y'all can thank yourselves.
She then also says that Gomez is another one of those people who doesn't care about her own mental health. She says that Gomez has bad tattoos, which is also a sneaky way to criticize one of the tattoos, which is the semicolon, which is a way for people to say that you could have put an end to your life, but you kept going. It's like a mental health addiction sort of symbol. And you might think like I'm the one who's saying that she's mentioning it when I don't have any proof, but the thing is, she goes on to talk about how Selena is addicted and Selena isn't doing anything to help herself, and Selena is like faking mental health for not taking her responsibility and stuff like that. I think that it's tied into the way that she's like slyly trying to criticize it. I do believe that that's a thing. It might just be me being Alex Jones and having a conspiracy theory, but I really think that that's a thing. She claimed that Selena Gomez downed shots after she had a kidney issues. She also claimed that Selena Gomez is drinking because she's still obsessed with Justin Bieber, and that Justin Bieber has a new girl. Now Selena's upset, even though it seems like Shallon is just projecting. She also claimed that she worked for a company that had a bunch of sources that don't lie about celebrities, so she claims that she has the inside scoop when there's no evidence for anything she said. And she says that she has the power to help Selena Gomez, but she also says that Selena Gomez is so annoying that she doesn't want to help her in the first place. That's lovely. The next thing she calls annoying, the issues that these people have. So the way that Shallon thinks is, again, going back to gender dysphoria, if you have it, I can say that gender dysphoria is a bad thing because it sucks, it makes you feel bad. I'm not talking about the people who have it, I'm talking about the thing itself, it's bad. Shallon will then say, no, gender dysphoria itself is not the bad thing, the person who has it is also the bad thing. So she conflates the mental illness with the person and says that both of them are bad. So a schizophrenic person is a bad person because they have schizophrenia in her mind, basically. And this is the way that she frames it for everyone that she hates. If she has an obsession with someone, she takes it out on the person that she sees them with romantically. She made a review of one of Selena Gomez's songs and then makes it all about Selena Gomez being a terrible person and saying with glee that Selena Gomez will die and that her fans are to blame. And she can't wait to basically just say I told you so to all of her fans when this person dies. So she starts by saying that she doesn't like Selena, but it's not because of the substance abuse, it's because Selena is a liar and will overdose. She says that Selena Gomez is looking for a man and the men want functioning kidneys.
Selena has said in multiple interviews she continues to drink. Whatever, it's my life, let me live it. It's not your life, it's Francia Race's life. It's her kidney that she has given to you so that you may live, and that's how you repay her. And this is what, she makes me insane.
Hey, it's Selena Gomez. Listen to my new song, Boyfriend, on the deluxe version of my album, Rare, right now on Amazon.
That girl is drunk. That girl is drunk and or high, looks like 4 Xannies just kicked in with a shot of Jack. She's not gonna make it to 27. She's just not. That's not how the human body can function. But it gets worse. And by worse, I mean infinitely better. First line, I want a boyfriend. I keep hitting dead ends. Try to take a shortcut, but get cut again and again. I want a boyfriend. Tell me, are there any good ones left? Not for you, boo. They want their kidneys.
And it's just creepy considering that Shallon has had a thing for Justin Bieber for 10 years or more now, since Justin was like a 16-year-old. She also has a blog post where she says she can't control how creepy she is, so shut up, let her have her sex dreams, because he may be 11 in the video that she's referring to in the blog post, but he's 17 in reality, so that makes it okay, and 17 is the age of consent. In New York, I think. Shallon will always claim that she's new to this, but she has been around since before the 2010s. It's been more than 10 years. She's just not new to this at all. She had a blog where she says things like she's gonna be ready to ungay someone and she can kiss gay men regardless of if they consent or not because she's going to turn them back towards women. She even uses the phrases try to kiss and stuff like that because she knows that gay men will not consent to her doing that, but she's just gonna try it anyway. She also called a trans man an it, or a thing, and when confronted by this, she says that she is a bisexual, so she cannot be against this shit and not a bigot. As someone who is also a bisexual woman, that shit happens everywhere. There was a trans person on Twitter last week who was claiming that people who have preferences, sexual preferences, are bad. Like, everyone is an asshole. It doesn't matter what group you're in. It's like people who say that you can't be racist towards white people. Like, yes, you fucking can. It's just, it's annoying. Everyone can be shitty. You are shitty. But she knows the ages of consent in the states that she lives in, like Onision, because she has a thing for underage boys. There's also, again, the string of tweets where she talks about underage boys. There's this video of her interviewing this band called The Cab, which was a band comprising of 18-year-olds, and I think that she was already in her 30s at the time. She went up to them, touched them, was way too close to them, made comments about them in a creepy way, and then when one of them says like, oh, we're just kids to you or something like that, and she's like, you're older than the boys that I usually date. This is just wrong. like in a moral sense. I feel like if Shallon was a man, people would be just calling her out way sooner, and it's just frustrating. The reason that I'm consistently bringing up her age is because like a lot of stuff she actually hides her age. I have something that I'm referring to on my phone right now while I'm talking about this, but it's because it's very confusing. She says that she is 35, but if you look her up on some articles, she had said that she was 37. And then she graduated high school in 1999, which is the year I was born, and she is about 39 or 40 nowadays. When she made those comments about Justin Bieber being 16 years old, she was 30, which is creepy. She lied about her age and talks about young men in that let's get a puppy kind of way, which was really bad. But she's perfectly fine with her double standards because men apparently aren't allowed to do what she's doing because they're men, and women are like more likely to be victims or something. This is one of the most sexist things I've ever seen.
This is why I have an issue with dating people who are guys who are a lot older. First of all, I know what you're gonna say. Shallon, you date younger dudes. I know that. But I don't date teenagers, first of all. I don't date teens. Even I have my limits. But like, women but to such a lesser degree, have the ability to sexually traumatize a guy the way men can sexually traumatize women. Women are pleasers. We're hardwired by society to please guys. So if he's used to having this whole sexual relationship and you're brand new to this, he's not going to be the one pumping the brakes. You're going to be the one stepping up and like going beyond your boundaries. And like, boys, it's not really the same thing. I mean, I'm not never, certainly. And like, I'm not saying a boy can't be raped, a boy can't be molested. Obviously they can, but it happens less.
Not only that, but when I used to talk about SJWs, I used to talk about them in the SJWs are bad kind of sense, and I still do. But the thing is, I've come to realize that instead of just directly talking about how bad they are, I should be talking about how both extremes are really bad because they feed off of each other and everyone else gets caught in the crossfire. It's because it's kind of popping up again in other ways. Like, I initially was like, oh, SJW is kind of old now, no one cares, and then it started popping up in entertainment and other stuff, and I ended up getting really riled up about it again. And not only are the people who are being attacked by them like white men, not only do they have a problem, but it creates a division on the other side where the people who you're trying to protect, like, you know, black people or women or whatever, are gonna get caught in that as well, and it does a disservice to them. Like, you've heard bigotry of low expectations and stuff like that. It's just, it hurts everyone. So if I phrased it that way, it just felt like it was considering more of the complicated issues rather than just saying SJW bad, and I wanted to bring that up in a Shallon video because I think that she encapsulates that perfectly. If you continuously cry about an enemy that isn't actually really there, the reality is going to catch up with you and make that enemy what you're really pretending that it is. What I mean by that is the extreme other side is not as big, but because people have been crying about how much it is, you're kind of pushing people to make that side bigger. Everyone just gets caught in the end, which is what I think I never really mentioned about why I don't like SJWs, and I think that it's way better if I actually talk about it, because people like Shallon are just pushing people to the other side to basically become what she accuses them of being, and that makes it worse for everyone else. Because she and everyone else who is in that kind of bubble just create a group of scorned individuals who really don't have anywhere to go. They get very disenfranchised, and then all of a sudden, it's not going to end well. You might be thinking, why are you talking about weird politics stuff in a drama video? I don't believe in bringing up this stuff when it isn't around, but when I do see it, I think it's important to point it out, because you're pointing out how it seeps into other things. 2020 has gotten to the point where every single thing needs to apparently have some weird SJW standard, and then people are taking it way too far. It's just, the complications of all of these issues are just not being taken into account. Shallon Lester saying that stuff about white men, and then I was thinking about how the whole MGTOW movement is a thing, and I was just thinking, like, people like her kind of push those guys to do that, and some of those guys take it way too far as well, so in turn, everyone's just getting fucked over. And I was listening to a Count Dankula livestream the other day. He did one called On the Current State of Things or something like that, and he mentioned this concept, and I just wanted to play this clip because I really think that it explains my issue with these kind of people.
Now, if I was in charge of the government and I wanted to make the far right a thing, and I wanted, you know, the far right got to pump those numbers up, those are rookie numbers, that's the type of thing I would do. I would absolutely demonize absolutely everything about the right wing. I would demonize absolutely everything about it. I would call these people racist, Nazis, far right, because, you know, if you hear something enough times. And I would also, basically, anytime they had a problem, I would disregard it. I would equate basic bitch conservatives with Nazis and far righters, and I would do a lot of things that, you know, attack white people and attack their history and attack, you know, tons and tons of stuff like that. Basically, because all these things, all it's doing is pushing more and more people to the far right.
So it's just an issue in general for the mentality, and people are getting so sensitive that I feel like you can't even criticize it anymore without being labeled in some way. All this is doing is just creating more stupid division, because if both sides are fighting, then the real big boys start stepping in and making things even worse. So back to Shallon. So she started off with these blog posts from before YouTube, and all of them are focusing on telling men why they're not getting women, in the sense that she assumes that all women want the same thing that she does, and she goes off on like nerdy men, and she says that if you're into video games or comics, that's the reason why you're not getting laid. You should stop doing that.
So don't be all like, cool, what? Oh no, I just I'm on the Bluetooth, because actually you look like a schizophrenic person. You don't look cool, you look schizophrenic. But I mean, the mentally ill think that they're really cool, so.
Also judging you on something else. That gay backpack you're wearing. What are you doing with that thing? Oh, it's so gay. I mean, and what do you have in there? Ballet shoes, Kimberly? Good God. Racks of clothes and that Taylor Lautner poster. There's a lot to get through before you get to that wall, right? So, what were we talking about? Was it revenge? There's a good chance it was. I talk about that a lot. Was it 19-year-olds? Is it like regular guys that like this movie, or is it guys who never actually had sex with a real flesh woman, just like they just go to Comic-Con and stuff? I don't know. Anyway, what else are you spending your money on? Presumably things to attract women, right? Or to distract yourself from the fact that you don't have one. Like video games? Yeah. Guys that get laid a lot, they don't have video game systems. They have actual women. Flesh women. Not women they interact with playing Halo or World of Warcraft. Real live women with actual breasts. Whoa!
And she just kind of disapproves of them and shames them. I guess that the market that she's making these videos for is reflected in how she's speaking. Like, I think a lot of maybe the women who watch those things are like her, but the way that she says it is if she's speaking for all women and talking to all men, which is the problem. If I was looking for a relationship, I would absolutely look for somebody who was as interested in video games, stupid anime, Twin Peaks, sci-fi, I don't know. Like, if we can't cry together about how terribly painful the ending of Neon Genesis Evangelion is, you're going out the door. I pointed to the window when I said so. Shallon is also under fire because she used words like, I think she used the word faggot. She called somebody gay because they were wearing a bag that she didn't like, and she called someone schizophrenic. And here's the thing. I am all about using language freely. I'm all about using language offensively. So in this particular instance, I'm kind of coming to bat for Shallon because, as I've just shown, I used the word faggot before. I'm okay with using the word retarded. I really think that people just need to grow a thicker skin. Like, comedy is supposed to be offensive, and I think it's important to criticize the context. So I think that the fact that Shallon actually does believe that gay men are faggots, and that she wants to ungay them, or that she hates people who have mental illnesses, so she will use this word schizophrenic maliciously. She's being an arsehole and she needs to be criticized for it, but I will not criticize the use of those words as like a comedic offensive thing in and of itself. And I'm saying this as someone who, even with racial slurs, like, I've been called the word nigger in real life before. When I was a kid, I had a lot of racist people to deal with, and I feel like it thickened my skin, so I really don't give a shit. I think that these words should just, the only way that they're gonna lose power is if you just use them, and I actually defend her using them. And in the end of the day, I think that getting offended at words instead of getting offended at the context, it's the reason why issues aren't treated as complicated as they should be. At the end of the day, superficial reactions create superficial solutions, and the body is still swept under the rug. I think that with the past, if you constantly hang it over someone's head and never let them move past it and never let them acknowledge that they've changed, it's just going to make them jaded and never let them change. So I think that you know, there's that whole discussion as well about stuff from the past coming back and like people aren't allowed to move on from it. And even if it's not related to them in any aspect, it's just like, oh, you still have to atone for it, even though it has nothing to do with you because of some random superficial reason. So I'm not trying to bring up the past to try and act like Shallon can't move past it in any way, because through Shallon's responses to everything, she just basically acted like the past never happened. And when you do that, like, I think nowadays there's some like statues being torn down and everything. It's just really dumb because you're just erasing the past and you're not learning from it. And Shallon was doing that by just deleting all of her videos. She's not acknowledging anything. I hate the way that the world is going, where you're either just constantly talking about the past or you're just not talking about it at all. Either way, you're just hurting people. And I think that Shallon is just a symptom of that. You can delete a video and then say, I deleted it because I no longer stand by it, but Shallon is acting like they never happened in the first place. I think that it's important to bring up the past because it's directly showing that she hasn't changed, and if she did change, I wouldn't have brought it up. I just think I wanted to mention that. So let's get to what happened now. So the first thing was this Reddit post that she made. Now she made 4 points that she didn't really say much, so I'm just gonna go over them very quickly. She calls her fans shower liners because it sounds like shalloners and I just don't get it. Next thing, she claims that all of the stuff that she did was just one tiny tweet or one silly tweet. She doesn't acknowledge the bad things, she just acts like they're silly jokes. She has changed over that time, which we've proven that she hasn't. She's also saying that people are just making money off of what she's saying for clout, which no one was talking about her in the first place, so it wasn't for clout, it was just when people started talking about her, they realized that there was a problem. She conflates all of the criticism with pointless drama. She ignores every single real criticism. She just says that people are saying that she should be more positive in the future, and she will be. And I guess that's good, but it doesn't really address anything. The next thing is that she claimed that D'Angelo Wallace had doxed her, which he proved was false. He wanted to clear his own name from these allegations, and the best way that I can show that is to just show a clip of him speaking in his own words.
Someone in the comments asked her to provide proof for her very serious allegation that I doxed her by releasing her personal phone number and home address on my Twitter, which is obviously illegal in this context. And Shallon responds in that comment and goes on to clarify she can't provide proof because A, she doesn't feel comfortable posting her information here, which, by the way, she could just blur it if she wanted to prove that I did tweet that. B, Twitter has already removed it. C, a police report has been filed and legal action is now pending. And D, she's under legal advice not to talk about it, which is obviously untrue because here she is talking about it publicly. Now, these are really spineless and just sad ways to kind of cop out of having to provide evidence for the claims that you're making against me. But the saddest part is these reasons that you gave for not providing evidence actually prove that what you claimed happened did not occur. If she had just said he tweeted my personal information and then he deleted it, it would be very hard for me to prove that that didn't occur because obviously the tweet is just gone with the wind. But as you notice, she said Twitter removed my post. That means that my tweet with her home address and phone number was on my Twitter account with 25,000 plus followers long enough for Twitter to find it and delete it after she reported it. And none of my followers saw it. You can see that this didn't occur by going to Twitter and just searching through people's replies to me, because those would still be there even if the tweet was gone, and seeing that no such tweet was ever up. And if it was, somehow nobody commented on it. Again, Twitter just doesn't instantly remove posts just because you report them. It takes at least a few minutes, if not longer than that. So allegedly, this tweet was on my Twitter account for long enough for Twitter to find it. Long enough that minutes had passed and nobody said anything about this, screenshotted it, told any other creators about it, or anything. None of Shallon's fans got a screenshot of me doing that. There are hundreds of people who have tweet notifications on for every single tweet that I post. So anything I tweet, people will just get that in their notification bar.
She also said that she was never going to clap back on any other medium because she thinks that it's not a good thing to do, yet she specifically went to her subreddit, which has the least amount of people there, so that she could respond and claim that she did respond, but only in front of people who would see it there, and then she could claim it never happened because she was trying to damage control so that her audience wouldn't leave her, but that in the end did not happen because people started just unsubscribing in droves because she deleted over 1,000 tweets. She also, despite the fact that she criticizes people for using mental health as a way to avoid responsibility, said that she was a mess and the reason that she was doing what she was doing was because of depression, and she says that her true fans will understand this. She also says that people who criticize her just don't like strong women. Case closed. She had a quote from her Instagram saying that no one can cancel her because broken people use cancel culture to claim that they have power. Again, it's this fascination with the idea that people who are mentally ill or have some sort of like broken quality to them are beneath her, and she doesn't have to acknowledge them. She also claims that the pedophile accusations are not real, and she says that the word racist is overused, so she doesn't have to respond to people calling her racist. And again, I think this is why I hate that kind of culture so much, because yeah, the word racist is overused, it has lost its power, while racial slurs and other things have gained more power because people make a bigger deal about them instead of actually just trying to accept that offensive stuff exists. So we'll quickly touch on the whole BTS thing. I'm not a K-pop person, I'm more of a glam rock and gent kind of girl, but she said that they all look the same, that they all wear makeup, and she seems to act like she is the savior, because she's like, they don't know that they can look like real Asian men and not have to put on makeup. I have to tell them that so they can stop putting on makeup and be free from the makeup. She doesn't seem to understand that, one, men can dress how they want, women can dress how they want. I don't care if it's effeminate or not, I don't give a shit, it doesn't bother me. Secondly, a lot of East Asian cultures are very repressed and because of the formalities. Like in anime, the reason that anime is so hypersexual and so like crazy hair color and type of thing is because people can't do that in real life. Can't like dye your hair crazy color because that affects your job and stuff like that. That's a whole reason why K-pop is like this and why Japanese culture is like this, and she has a very poor understanding of it. If you're gonna pretend that you know your shit, at least know your shit.
Oh, okay, let's pull out the posters. Let's pull out the posters and see who they are. We have the women of BTS. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't... Look at these people. I don't even know what to call them, boys or girls, because I don't know what they are. Look at these people. Look at this one. I don't know which one he is. Look at those highlights. Those chunky Tony and Guy mall salon highlights. And the contact lenses. You are an Asian man. You don't need to look like a girl named Ashley, L-E-I-G-H, with chunky highlights and blue eyes. You're allowed to look like an Asian man with dark hair and dark eyes. All of you are. Why do you all have the same weird orange? Girl, what shade of lipstick is that? You look pretty. You there with the silver hair. That's kind of a hot color. Uh-oh, look at the other side. This one, old Pinky Lee. How do you guys tell these people apart? Because with their hair, okay, this one I could see maybe knowing who he is because he has a different hair color. The rest of them all have the same hair color and the same eye color. I just think, is it weird that I think Asian people should be allowed to look Asian? I don't know. Call me crazy.
Lastly, she made a video about being scammed. Now, a lot of people seem to have made fun of her and said that karma is coming for her, but I do have my suspicions, as do most people, that this event may have not actually happened, and we'll go over why.
Swati Shukla. She is someone I have considered a very close friend. She runs the Shalloners WhatsApp group, and we were gonna go into business together in a different venture. And I woke up today to a message saying, these other YouTubers are offering me money to sell our private WhatsApp chats, and I'm going to do it. I just want you to know first. And if you don't want me to do this, you have to pay me $9,000 and forgive a $1,400 loan that you gave me. I'll unpack this all, but that is the TLDR. And I began hearing from you guys, and I am just so sorry that I didn't believe you. I tried to warn me and you tried to tell me that like she was being like a dictator on the chat and deleting people. And I was like, you know what, it's her. But before this, I had lent her money. I lent her a lot of money. I lent her $1,400. Gave me this story about, you know, it's the pandemic. She lives in India but lives in like a 20-bedroom house, has servants, would complain when her servants didn't show up and she had to wash her own breakfast spoon. Like, she's always talking about the family wealth. So, okay, but she's like, my law firm is basically dead in the water. I have drained my savings paying my employees. I need $1,400 to make payroll. And she's like, they're all women. And I'm like, I just can't like.
Her Reddit is turning on her. Like I mentioned, they're eating her alive because that's what she created. She also provided a screenshot of her paying the woman $1,000 because that woman needed the money, which was actually very suspicious looking. And then she, despite the fact that she sent this woman money, she also claims that this woman is incredibly wealthy, that the reason that she needed money in her 20-bedroom apartment was because she couldn't pay her servants or her law firm. It just comes across as really fucking weird.
So then I compared it to my phone. I have an Android, so when I send someone money, it looked different. Some of the words were slightly different, but I'm like, it's on an Android, so maybe it's a problem with me. So I borrowed my roommate's iPhone, and then I downloaded the app, and then I went into my account, and I did the exact same thing. And lo and behold, now it looks identical, but still some of the words are different. If you notice, it doesn't say you paid $1,400, it says you sent. Meaning when you send someone money, right, and if you look at the transaction type at the bottom, it says money sent. That's why it says you sent $1.89 to blank. But on Shannon's screenshot, you notice it says you paid, and that struck me as a little bit odd because I used to run an online store. Normally you paid is when you basically are paying out invoices and stuff like that, or you're paying stores for transactions. Then you normally use you pay. That's what at least struck me. So I pulled it up, and I pulled up one of my old transactions I did, I think, with Uber. Look at the difference. Now you says you've paid, right? So now you're seeing the word paid, but it's no longer money sent. It's a different type of transaction that you're engaging, and hence the words are different. The second thing that I think stands out to me the most is it says from Washington Mutual. Now, I looked up Washington Mutual, but Washington Mutual has been closed since 2008.
Lastly, people have been digging up her books. Now, I cannot stomach reading them. I got the Movie Bob book from my video of him, like one of you gave it to me, and I haven't read that either because I'm just not in the fucking mental health place to do that right now. So I just scrounged around for some quotes. In her X's and O's book, she says, "I am not like other girls. I am the girl Hitler would dream of, and no means no unless it's sex."
Why are you gay?
I dread the idea of reading that book, so I'm not gonna do it. I just wanted to put that out there. I might do it one day, but today is not that day. But yeah, Shallon is still being garbage. So with me, I'm sorry that I haven't been around in a while. The internet kind of, since everything is exploding, I had another one of those burnout sessions and then I wanted to ramble. It's been a while since I've been doing Facecam because I genuinely think that most of my videos are better without my fucking mug on screen. Don't forget to take some time for yourself as well. Don't let stupid stuff get to you too much. Your health is the most important thing. And the Yandere Dev series, I already have part 2 planned. I haven't started it yet, but I'm working on it. I'm just gonna edit this and then I'm gonna go to fucking bed. What did I even get out of making this video?
Nothing! You lose!
やれやれだぜ。